and I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully people will be able to see what's happening there. So let me do this. I'm just going to share this screen like so. And try to kind of make note of any questions as you go through, and we'll try and pick those up at the end. So can everybody see my screen? That it just says how to apply for jobs. There's not lots of notes on there. Anna, is it sharing the right screen?
Yes.
Yes. You can't see all of my notes. You can just see how to apply for jobs and a lady kind of talking with her hands like this. Hopefully that's the case. It's so frustrating, I can't tell. Okay, so we are recording, and I'll get kick-started. So those of you that have been on the sessions with us before, you'll know that it's the first kind of 30 minutes is where we give you lots of information, give you some handy tips, and help you to kind of learn how to do something in particular. So today we're focusing on how to apply for jobs. And actually what we'll go through with this is lots of kind of individual things around knowing what to search for. So I know that sounds a bit silly because we all kind of think we know, but actually sometimes we need to expand our minds and the sort of roles that we're looking for, and maybe they're not always the things that we were once looking at. We're also going to talk a little bit about where and how to look for jobs. There's lots of different places you can find jobs, but we want to make sure that it's nice and clear for you to know where those are. We're going to talk a little bit about setting up alerts as well, because actually a lot of the websites that you can find jobs at the moment, they have fantastic alerts. You can get automatic emails. You don't have to spend hours and hours kind of going through different jobs every single day. They kind of come to you. So we'll show you how to do that. We're also going to give you some top tips that will get your application seen. So a lot of roles now, even pre-COVID, but obviously the last year has made it even harder. There's a lot of people applying for the same job. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to get yours seen over other people, which will mean you're more likely to get an interview. And then we'll have a question and answer session just at the end. And at this point, we'll ask you to ask any questions in particular that are helpful for you to know from a job hunting kind of space. Okay, so getting started, we want to have a little bit of a look around knowing what to search for. So what we're thinking about here is when you're looking for a job, what actually are you looking for? So one of the great things to think about is what hours can you work? Now, I know that sounds really silly, but if you have childcare, then actually you can't really work outside of those hours unless you've got support from family members or friends or a local community. So you actually have to think about the type of hours you can work. Number of times when I've interviewed people, even just a phone interview, and I've asked them, can you work the hours that are on the advert? And it turns out they can't. So we need to make sure that actually we're applying for jobs that work around our hours. Where can you work? So one of the things that is also really important, especially in London, I think, if you have to do lots and lots of traveling to get to your place of work, then actually that's going to take quite a lot of time away from your day. And if you've got other responsibilities, or maybe you've got another job, that could maybe impact on actually where you can get to work. Now, in a perfect world, we'd all love to work within walking distance. But also just have a think about that when you're applying for work. Lambeth is obviously lots and lots of jobs here, but once you start to go out, you might find some more jobs, maybe they're better paid, all of those sorts of things. What sort of work environment do you want to work in? So is it that you want to work in a factory with lots of other people that you can have conversations with? Do you want to work with customers and therefore work in a shop or a cafe or a restaurant? Are you more comfortable working in an office where you get to sit down all day and kind of write lots of different things there? It's just very much about what do you prefer. So some people love to have that social element, so hospitality might be perfect for them. Other people kind of like to be in an environment where they get told what to do, so they don't have to think too much because they've got lots of other things in their personal life that they have to think about. So these are just some of the things that you would think about when you're applying for work in the first place. Another thing to think about is actually, do you want to work in a team, or are you happy to work alone? Now, obviously, a lot of jobs are likely to have a mixture of the two, but there are some jobs that are just going to be where you're working only by yourself, and other jobs where you'll only be working with a team. And everybody's different. So if you're particularly introverted and you struggle to be able to communicate with people, and you prefer to work alone, do a good job, get the job done and go home, then actually it might be worth looking for jobs where you get to work alone. Whereas there's some people that work with the Baytree Centre that want to improve their English. So actually working alone is not going to help that. So what they're looking for is to be able to work with a team. So I think that's always a really good thing to have a think about. As a general rule, most jobs require both, but there's always some that require one or the other. And then the final question, which in my opinion is probably the most important. So what do you enjoy doing? One of the things that we spend a lot of time thinking about when we apply for jobs is, oh, we've done this before, we have this type of experience, and therefore that's the sort of job that I have to do now. Now, I'm a big, big believer that we should never have just one type of career throughout our lives. I think it's really important to make sure that we enjoy what we're doing. You know, we work hard when we're at work, we're there quite a lot of the time. We have to enjoy the work that we're doing, the people that we work with, and actually it adds a lot of satisfaction to our lives. I think as well as women, we tend to kind of get pushed aside into a slightly different types of roles and told not to think too big. And I think completely the opposite. I think we should expand the way that we think about work and just find stuff we really love doing, because then you don't mind working. It actually becomes enjoyable. Okay, so one of the things that we talked about recently was creating a list of the things that you love to do, and then actually going online and searching for list of job types in the UK. So we asked you to do this. I don't know if you've had the chance to do it yet. If not, I recommend that you take some time to do it. The reason is, what it will do is it will help you to narrow down the type of work that you want to apply for. When you go on to Indeed or Total Jobs or some of the other places I'll tell you about as we go through, there are thousands and thousands of jobs. So it can feel quite intimidating when you first start looking for work, or if you've been looking for work for a long time, it can feel quite intimidating. So helping to narrow down the type of work you want to apply for can actually give you some inspiration to look for different types of jobs that you may have never previously thought about. So initially you might have been a cleaner, and actually you're not enjoying that so much, but you only know how to do that, or so you think. But actually, once you start to write down things that you love to do, you can start to find jobs in other areas that maybe you never would have thought about at all. Okay. So, where to look for jobs? So, we've got lots of different spaces, and there's obviously other ones on top of this, but I think it's really helpful for you to just have some real basic places to start looking. So, one of the spaces is called Indeed. So, Indeed have a website, they have fantastic CV builders. They have brilliant cover letter templates. They've got fantastic videos, great advice, lots of free support that will really help you when you're looking for a role in the first place. The good thing about Indeed is that most different job sites and most companies will put their jobs on Indeed as well as other places. So you actually are more likely to find all of the jobs that are available on Indeed compared to most other sites. The next one is read.co.uk. So Read are very similar to Indeed. They're like a central space where people keep all of their jobs. And again, they've got some really fantastic guides, templates for your CV and your cover letters, and you can set up alerts on all of these sites as well. So it's a really great way to kind of capture all of the jobs that are in London, and obviously in Lambeth if that's where you're looking. Total Jobs is another website very similar to Indeed and Read, and it's just another place that you can look for jobs in general. Now, one place that I don't think people utilize as well as they could is the Job Centre. So the Job Centre are actually really great at not only hosting jobs, so you can actually see which jobs are available in your local area, but you can actually call them and you can speak to them and they can give you advice on how to find work. They can give you advice on training courses that are available. And actually everything they do is free as well. So you could even get somebody to help you alongside your Baytree Centre coach as well. And that's two people then that are helping you to look for work. So the Job Centre are fab. LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is one of those places that there are thousands and thousands of jobs, but I don't think people think to look on there. So with LinkedIn, with Indeed, with Read and Total Jobs, you will need to set up an account. It's completely free, but it takes a bit of time to set that up. But it really is worth it because it means that you are getting seen. It means that you're putting the effort in so that people can see your CV. And the more places you can actually apply and look, the more likely you are to be able to get an interview and then get the job. And then Glassdoor. So I don't know if you've ever heard of this before. Glassdoor is a really amazing site that not only has jobs, but it also has reviews on companies. So the brilliant thing about Glassdoor is that you can see before you even apply for a job whether or not that company would be right for you. So for instance, if they've got a lot of people that have left reviews about the company and said that it was a fantastic place to work, the management were really great and they really enjoyed it, then actually that sounds like a really good place to work. Whereas another person, another company, perhaps they haven't got such good reviews and people said that they don't treat their people very well or whatever reason, then actually maybe you know to not apply for a job in that company. So these are all different examples. We've got the links to each of these and we'll send them out afterwards. We've also got your handy guide that has some great videos and some links and different bits and bobs there. And listen, this is not exhaustive. There are so many others that actually you can go on to, but they tend to have the same sort of jobs. So actually, if you try and keep it to these types of spaces, hopefully you won't be wasting too much time. You've also got industry specific job sites. So TES is for teaching jobs. So actually, if you were looking to work in schools in particular, then TES is probably the space that you're able to find jobs in London that work in childcare. Okay, so setting up job alerts is a great way to take a lot of the job hunt pressure off, as actually the jobs will come directly to your inbox. So it takes some time when you first start to initially set it up, but it means that you can then apply for jobs a lot quicker and a lot easier once they're actually set up. So each of the job search websites has its own way of setting up alerts. So you need to go to each website and create a profile. You need to add your updated CV and cover letter and actually start searching for the jobs in the area you need. So I'm going to take you through the important things to think about when you're setting up job alerts. And then I'm going to show you a really simple way of being able to do it. So the first thing you need to think about when you're setting up job alerts is to actually put the job title that you're looking for. Now, you don't want to be too specific here. Say you wanted to be an office administrator. It might be best to just put office administrator rather than receptionist or personal assistant or whatever, try to keep it really broad, because then there'll be other jobs that maybe you wouldn't have thought about but might be interested in applying for. Think about the work location. So fortunately, we live in London, so there are lots and lots of jobs here, but you need to think about how far can you travel for work? Is it better for you to put Lambeth? Is it better for you to put a postcode and then within 1 mile radius, 2 miles radius, or whatever? I tend to just put London, and then you can filter out the ones that just that little bit too far away to travel. Are you looking for full-time, part-time, or agency work? So actually, a lot of people, when they set up the alert, they forget to put this, and then they get lots and lots of jobs that are just not relevant for them and it won't work. So make sure that you add that. And again, I'll show you how to do this shortly. Are you looking for a permanent role, or are you looking for a temporary role? Perhaps you're looking for a fixed term contract. These are the kind of jobs that you need to think about, because again, you don't want to be wasting lots of your time by setting up alerts for the wrong types of jobs. So I'm going to give you a really quick tour of Indeed's functionality when setting up alerts. It's super easy. You just need to have an account in the first place. So if I just click, and I'm just going to make sure you can actually see it. So hopefully everybody can see the Indeed right now. Anna, if you're still here, can you let me know that people can see the web browser in front of the slides? Because I would hate to talk about it. I don't know if Anna can hear me. Let's have a little look. Not too sure. Maybe Anna has gone. Okay. Mariam, can you let me know if you can see in front of you a web browser for Indeed?
Yeah, I can see it.
Fab. Okay, only because I've done stuff like this before, and I've been talking about it and no one could actually see it, so it was a bit rubbish for them. So it's really simple. As you can see, all you need to do is write down what type of job or company or keyword you're looking for, and then where you're looking. So I'm just going to put office administrator, and I'm going to keep it to London SW2, and I'm going to click on find jobs. So that's brilliant, really simple, really easy. And then you can start to kind of work through all of this. So the best thing here is you can put your email address here and you can click send me new jobs. What that then does is any job within that kind of environment that I've just looked at will naturally now send me job alerts. So you can click on the job alerts active and you can actually see which job alerts, you can see all of mine that I've been looking for recently. And then you can look at your email preferences and things like that. So obviously you might not want them daily. You might want to adapt that. You might just want them weekly. It's absolutely up to you. And you might want them for lots of different types of jobs. So you have to think about that. And actually you might have moved house. So you might decide that you want to change your city or your postcode, and then work from there. And it really is that simple. You can put as many alerts on as you like. It doesn't just have to be one. It might be that you want to look for jobs as a cleaner. It might be that you want to look for jobs as a phlebotomist. It might be that you want to look for jobs in an office, in customer service, in healthcare, all of these different things. So just set up alerts in all of the different ones, and then you'll get those alerts daily or weekly, depending on when you want to kind of receive them. And it really is that simple. So my suggestion is set them up, and then if you know how to, have a folder in your inbox that it automatically goes to. If you need some help with that, we can help you, because then it doesn't clog up the whole of your inbox. And then it just means that you can focus on that every time you start looking for jobs again. You've got all of these fantastic emails and you can apply straight away. Like I said, you will need to set up an account for this to work, but it's really easy. You just need to upload your CV. You just put your personal details in there, and then you're good to go. And obviously that should be free as well. Lovely. So one of the things that I'm hoping you're able to take away is ways to get your application seen. So did you know that actually 98% of large organizations use automatic systems to scan CVs? So that means that actually before a human even sees your CV, it could have been taken out of the running. So one of the things we have to do is be really, really clear on some of the wording that we're having that will match. And I'll tell you how to do that in a sec. So the first thing we want you to do when applying for jobs is do your research. It's really important to know the sort of culture and environment that you could be working in. So before you apply, check out the reviews on Glassdoor, do a little research on social media, and have a look at how the company works. It might be that they don't align with the way that your values are, and actually you'll be very unhappy. This will take you a little bit longer, but it will prevent you from applying for any jobs with a company that are actually going to make you unhappy in the long run. Look at the job description. So, like I said, 98% of large organizations use a computer system to scan your CV. So, of the CVs that they see, human people do not see those CVs until they've already gone through a system. So, make sure that when you are applying for jobs, that you adapt your cover letter or your CV and you put certain words from the job description into your CV, into your application. It's more likely to get past that automated scan, and it's more likely that you're going to get an interview there as well. One other really good tip, and again, I know that this can be tempting, especially when you've been looking for jobs for a very long time, but try not to apply for every job that you see. The reason is you're going to waste a lot of time um, in this respect, and then you'll not have time to personalize each application, which is the next one. Now, yes, personalizing each application takes longer, but like I said, it means that your CV is more likely to get seen. And that's what you want. Actually, you want a recruiter to be able to see your CV, see some of those keywords from their job description and from their adverts, and then they're more likely to want to see you. The other thing, and I know it sounds really silly, but I think a lot of people forget this, is always keep your CV and cover letter up to date. So any new experience, any new work history, any new education or training or anything you're doing, even the stuff you're doing with Baytree, everything you do adds to your CV. So just make sure you keep it up to date by looking at it every few months and make sure that your cover letter is also kept up to date as well. The other thing to think about is to network. So normally when you say network to people, they just don't like it at all. But you need to think about, do you know somebody that works in the company already? Can you email or call somebody on the recruitment team to chat about the role? A lot of the times when jobs are advertised, they will say who has advertised it. There might be an email address or a phone number. It's always a really good idea to get in touch with that person and say, can you have a chat about the role? The reason is it shows how passionate you are, and it also allows them to get you and see you before anybody else does. One other way to network as well is to think about your local community. So shopkeepers, people that you might meet on the school run, your friends and family, any kind of groups you belong to, perhaps places of worship. All of these sorts of places are great when you're looking for work because you can tell people and they might happen to know somebody that's looking at that point. So it's a great way to get a recommendation as well. And finally, so after you've applied for the job, one of the best tactics that has worked very successfully for me personally and for a lot of people I know is to follow it up. So once you've sent your CV and it has been a week or two, it can make you look really good if you follow up and show your enthusiasm by asking if they received it and would that you would love to be considered for an interview. Again, this shows your passion, but it also shows that you're able to be proactive and also remind them that you're there because a lot of the time they might forget. So One thing that I drummed in when we talked about the CVs, but also again, and I know that it will take a little bit longer to do this, but you cannot apply for a job without looking at the job description first. This is going to tell you what is needed for the person who's going to be hired to be good at their job. It also gives you the opportunity to find some key skills from the job description and then add them to your CV or cover letter before you even apply for the job. Like I said, this gives you a much higher chance of being called for an interview. On the opposite side, there are things to be wary of because unfortunately, some people will try to take advantage of job hunters. So here's some things just to look out for and not to be too worried about, but it's helpful to know. So the first thing is any jobs that are not advertised on some of the main sites. So it's not saying that if they're not advertised that they're not legitimate, but I think it's important to think about if they're not advertised, then actually is it very safe? You know, are you going to get a contract? Are you going to be treated well? It's not always the case, but it's just something to be wary of. Any person who asks you to complete a trial as part of a job interview is not uncommon. That does happen quite a lot. However, a trial legally needs to be paid. So anything over an hour or two means that they could be taking advantage. So just double check if they need you to do a trial, just say to them, no problem, what time will I start and what time will I finish? If it's for quite a long time, it might be worth talking to your Baytree coach and making sure that it is a legitimate job. If it's just for an hour or two, then that's their way of making sure that you're going to be good at the job. So that's no problem. Any jobs that state 0 hours contracts are not ideal. So it's not illegal. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Some people get lots of benefits from working on 0 hours contracts. However, it does mean that there could be weeks where you end up with no work at all, and then other weeks where you have too much work, and it might make it a bit more difficult for you to manage your personal life and your family life around it. That's not to say that it isn't helpful. If you need flexibility, then they could be really helpful, but it's just something to watch out for. And then also, finally, any jobs that are asking you to pay for anything at all, because actually there's never a reason for you to have to send money to your employer. You should need to send your bank details or anything like that until your contract is signed. So if somebody is asking for that, it's just something to be wary of. You should never have to pay for anything up front. Even things like uniforms are likely to come out of your pay if they do come out in that respect. So that would be after you've signed the contract and after you've started. The other thing to think about with payment is don't pay for any help from a recruiter either. This is something we said in the last two sessions. Everything you need to be able to write your CV and to be able to apply for jobs and interview and all of that is already online or it's available from the Baytree Centre. So actually, you're not going to be getting good value for money. So instead, use this information from this session, from your handy guides, from your coach, from the job centre, all of these fantastic people will give you the support you need, and none of us will ask you for money in exchange. Okay, so one of the things I need you to think about here is just be patient. Looking for jobs can really take a lot of time. And actually, when you apply for jobs, your application could be seen by many, many different people. So being patient is really important. I understand it can feel disheartening when nothing is happening, but if you keep applying for jobs, then actually within a month or two, you will start to notice that more interviews are going to come through. So one of the things to help you understand this is actually the average time it takes from applying for a job to landing the job takes around 28 days. So that's pretty average. Sometimes it could take a lot longer than that. Sometimes it could be much quicker. This is a marathon, not a sprint. The important thing is that we want you to find jobs that you enjoy with a team that you like and actually where you're treated really well. So take your time, put in the effort at this stage and make things personal when you're applying, and you're more likely to find something that works for you and your personal life. So just before we go on to the summary of top tips, this is your handy guide. We will send this over with the video and various links after this webinar, but we want you to feel supported. So there's some great links in there, some free courses that can help you to gain more experience and knowledge. We've got some fantastic videos in there and just some really handy links to help you to learn perhaps when you finish the webinar. So I'll give you a quick summary of what we've just gone through. So the first thing is to know what you're applying for, and that can take a little bit of time. So take your time with that, that's no problem. Set up alerts. That's a really, really great way to save yourself some time. Do your research on the companies that you're applying for jobs at. Always look at the job description, look at the advert, all of the information that you'll need to be able to be successful will be in there. And finally, be patient. It does take a long time, regardless of how much experience you have, how senior you are, how much work that you've done in the UK. It can take a really long time. So try to be patient with yourself. And finally, before we get onto the question and answer stage, the further support we talked about, we've got the how-to guide, we have the free online learning resources that we've given you access to through the how-to guides, handy videos, again, we've got the links there. You've also got the Indeed and the Read websites that we talked about earlier, because they've got all of the fantastic materials that can help you. And then finally, and most importantly, you've got your Baytree Centre coach who will help you as well. And that is it. So I'm just going to stop recording, and I'm going to ask you all to turn on your